Could be distributions from mutual funds, and we'll be discussing these types of investments in our investment portion of our section next week. Capital gains distributions, same as capital gains based on how long mutual fund assets are held. Again, this is very important in planning, and especially in investment and portfolio planning and an asset allocation. Because if I'm in a mutual fund that's what they call constrained, where you're basically constrained to the portfolio manager's wills and wishes, and you get that distribution like clockwork, and there's no flexibility, versus having a managed portfolio where a manager may say, hey, we don't want to sell that right now, or it's more tactically managed. We'll be discussing that. It can mean the difference between saving taxes and not saving taxes. Again, I'll be touching on all different components as we follow along this journey, so I may go off a little bit off the mark here, but I want to kind of build some jargon so when we do get into the investment side, it can be familiar to you. Let's talk a little bit about investments and taxable earnings. And again, we're going to get into a discussion here. Is going to be an illustration of really the reality of what do I really make on my money? What do I really earn on my money? Because the real return of your dollar is eroded. The real return. What do you feel? Well, we talked about a couple basics. What do you feel erodes the dollar? We just covered a couple of those financial basics.
Taxes.
Taxes.
Inflation.
Inflation. Exactly. Taxes and inflation erode your dollar. And so when you're investing your money, it's not what I make. You see returns all the time. What did you earn? Oh, well, I earned 10%, 8%, 9%. Well, what's the reality? How much were you taxed on? How much was inflation? What's the real return of my dollar? What's the real return? Because you could have someone earning 10% and you're earning 7%, and you can make more money if their taxable distributions are greater than yours. They're paying more tax. Here's an example. Investment of $4,000, a 6% average annual return, taxable earnings $240, 24% tax bracket. The tax goes $58. Tax deferred earnings. Now we're familiar with tax deferred earnings because we all have retirement plans. And we all realize our earnings inside our retirement plan, we don't pay current income tax on those earnings. We do not pay current income tax on those earnings. That's tax deferred. Just deferring the tax until it's withdrawn. Here, we have the same investment, same return, same earnings, only deferred. Even though I'm in a 24% bracket, I don't have current income tax. I defer it to a later date. Tax deductible contributions that we're familiar with. Again, retirement plans or IRAs or simple IRA plans. If we could tax deduct it, we're now reducing our taxable income. So I'm saving 24%, I'm saving $960. So the value of retirement planning and tax deductible retirement planning, like 401ks, IRAs, TI CREFs, PSERS accounts, TSPs, all of these particular deferred programs save you current income tax. What does that do? That accelerates the growth of your accounts. It accelerates the growth. So down the road, you have more money. And believe it or not, it works out that way. Tax-free is typically your municipal bonds. There are tax-free investments. And depending on your personal situation, and this is where I talk about components, and I talk about looking at all the different aspects of your financial life. Tax-free investing avoids the income tax. And if you're living in a state, if you're in Pennsylvania, it's a Pennsylvania tax-free account, you're free of a state income tax also. So income tax avoidance through tax-free municipal bonds. Pardon me? That is not an IRA. Municipal bonds, Brian's question was it a Roth? No, a Roth is a type of retirement plan that tax defers monies that ultimately become tax-free if you hold it long enough. Municipal bonds are a tax-free investment that you can have outside, typically they're outside of a retirement plan, that you want to invest because your tax bracket may be a certain level, and at that point, you're looking for some tax relief on after-tax dollar investing. That's municipal bonds. Or to generate income, tax-free income, depending on what your bracket is. And we talk about the real return. When we take a look at the real return, I have a $10,000 investment earning 4%. Annual income at $400. Well, income tax-wise, I lose $128. My net after-tax income is $272, but I have my inflation rate, and this is based on a 2.15% inflation rate. On my $10,000, I'm losing $215 to inflation. So, Darby, you mentioned taxes and inflation. My real return is, even though I was quoted 4, my real return is 0.57 when taxes and inflation erode the dollar. That's why, again, planning is very, very important, and the components of where you're at as far as basics of planning, because of the fact that you want to design your success in retirement by looking at different buckets of money that can help you avoid taxes and inflation in the future during your retirement years. And again, so potentially you may not hit those additional plateaus of tax brackets. Real rate of return. And again, return needed for 2% net return. So they're showing you at a 24% with a, I'll just use a 2% inflation rate. So to get 2% after tax and inflation in a 24% tax bracket, you need at 2%, you need to earn 5.31%. So this kind of gives you an idea of a picture of the real return of a dollar after taxes and inflation, based on tax returns at 12, 24, 35, 37, and the inflation rate. So if I have an inflation rate of 3, I earn a 24% tax bracket. I want to make 2%, I got to earn 6.66. Making your money last. We're going to touch on this. I'm going to touch on this more in the second class. This gets to more about sequence of returns again. Sequence of returns when you're retiring. If you're in retirement or you're approaching retirement, sequence of returns and making your money last becomes very, very important because of the fact that if I am retiring or I'm in retirement and I'm pulling and drawing monies during my deaccumulation phase, when my dollars are finite and the markets are declining and I'm not properly invested within my risk tolerance, I can run out of money. So that's why it's important when you are in that deaccumulation phase of your life, that retirement, approaching or in retirement, that you manage the situation to have a clear picture. That sequence of returns and making my money last is very important. And because of longevity. Failure to prepare for the unexpected. And again, Helena, I think you touched on that about aging parents, preparing for the unexpected. If I'm in retirement and I have aging parents that I do want to care for, that can be unexpected. If I have, again, I brought this up earlier, if I have grandchildren that all of a sudden need to live with, I don't know if you've seen that commercial on there's a new commercial out where the grandfather says, hey, I'm retiring, I'm going to buy my vehicle, and all of a sudden the granddaughter lives with the grandparents and he hands the keys to the granddaughter, buys her the car, and uses those assets, and he keeps his old vehicle. So that's the reality of today. But you have to prepare for the unexpected. That's the key. Preparing for the unexpected. Putting yourself in a position to win. That's another Jimmy V quote. Position to win. neglecting to plan your estate. I find when I plan with clients that everyone thinks estate planning is for the wealthy. It is not. Estate planning is for all of us. Because the key to success in transferring your assets and having a clear picture of the ramifications if you don't, and we're going to be touching on this in class 3, and I will give you some examples of that, can be detrimental if beneficiary arrangements aren't in line. If there's no will or an outdated will, you have assets going to some heir that you don't want to receive those assets or a percentage of those assets. And we'll be discussing that in class 3. Failure to develop a winning attitude, you have to have a positive attitude. And again, everyone I know here does have a positive attitude because you're here and you're motivated. And that is great. And the financial basics. Does everyone take a little break? About a 5-minute break? Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and we'll get into retirement income.
Down here and around.
I'm just gonna step outside.